Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we start off, I'd like all of you all to see a small video.
Look, I can be a shark. Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my moms. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah.
Well, we all want our learners to be like Jessica. That's Jessica. That's a daily affirmation. You can get the same on YouTube and have a look at it and get your teachers to see them too. This is what we all want our learners to be like. Confident, energized, powerful, motivated. We're all looking for this. But the reality of education is something else. Diametrically opposite. We're seeing a lot of this happen today. Times have changed. Yes, they have. And I won't go into the industrial, agricultural, information, and now the conceptual age. But with these economic changes, there have been new understandings about learning that are leading to significant changes in the way children learn and in the ways that they are assessed. There has been a move towards authentic learning, learning that is relevant to students and to the real world. Let me give you an example. Even now, grade 6, I think in one of the boards, we teach Mughals in history, right? We also, not in grade 6, maybe 7. We also teach migration in sciences. How many of us ever sit down to link this learning together? What we do at our end, at Kangaroo Kids Education Limited, is we map the curriculum. It's done in such a manner that when a science teacher first teaches the children about the reasons why plants and animals migrate, and plants do too, some of them, why do they migrate? And when the children, they learn these reasons, and when they move to the history session, they learn the reasons as to why the Mughals needed to migrate to India. And why do human beings need to migrate? Yeah? From there on, you connect their learning to a different level, where you take them on to the brain drain that happened many years back, or just a few years back, and the turnaround of the brain drain that is happening now. That's contextual for children. They have a lot of views, they're reading a lot of newspapers, they know what's happening in careers, they know where they want to be, where they want to go, still confused, but they have directions and paths, and you have to see their opinions on these matters. That's linking learning for them. This learning is more interesting, interactive, and they're applying their learning as to why Mughals migrated at that point of time to why we need to migrate today. Talking about urban, rural migration to urban cities. Why is that happening today? All these connections layer the learning for the children, and learning becomes more authentic for them. It doesn't only stop at authentic learning, it moves to authentic assessment. Assessment that provides students with opportunities to demonstrate what they know, can do, and are like. Knowledge, skills, as well as attitude. These approaches have moved assessment away from emphasis on paper and pencil methods towards the use of a broader array of assessment methods like CCEs, one of the tools that we are looking at today. When we start designing curriculum, we think through very simple questions. And before we move on to the connotations of assessment, we are going to pose these simple questions towards layers in the teaching-learning process. The first step we need it to do is to identify why do we need to teach? Why are we teaching? Why is the learning happening? Why do children need to come to schools? We all state that we want learners with well-rounded personality, positive, motivated, just like we saw Jessica there. We all want that. But have we ever articulated and identified these attributes? What are these attributes that we want? Do we want a critical thinker? Yes, we're hearing a lot of those words today. Resilient individuals, technology savvy. We know we want all this. But how do you see it reflected in what you teach? So the next question that you have to ask yourself, if this is what I want my learner to be today, that is a critical thinker, health conscious. Health is very important. Technology savvy. Then, what am I to teach the child? Can the regular curriculum work? Can the subjects and the disciplines work? We've still not moved away from teaching only the disciplines. So we have to weave all the attitudes and the skills within the disciplines. And then we know what to teach. After knowing what to teach, we move to when to teach it. When do we teach this material? You can't teach everything at one go. You can't teach attitudes at one go. Attitudes take a lifetime to build. But in any syllabi, have you ever seen a block building process of attitudes? Have you ever? I'm asking you a question. No one thinks about that bit. But we need to weave it within the disciplines. What is it? We all know that science gives us logical thinking, right? But have we broken down the skills of logical thinking into parts and then woven it within the scientific curriculum? We need to look at those areas too. So of course, after the when we teach, we move to the how. How do we make the learning process engaging for children? How do we hook them on to the learning process? We're dealing with too many things today. We're dealing with the advent of computers, the video, media, audio, mobile phones, everything today. Facebook, you have everything today. You're dealing with everything. How then can a teacher get a child in the classroom to listen to her? Because the reality of the fact is, we're still in classrooms. Children spend maximum time in that classroom. And really, all over India, how many schools are digitally empowered? How many? Very few. So at the end of the day, it's the teacher as a facilitator and what she brings into the classroom that actually empowers the complete classroom. So from there, we need to provide resources for our teacher to take the progress of learning ahead. From there, we then need to assess the learning that takes place and whether it meets the outcomes we've identified at the beginning of the process. Very importantly, to know what to assess. If I know that I want a critical thinker, my questions that I place in a paper can, of course, not be all knowledge-based questions. They have to be complex. They have to cater to the higher level of thinking skills. So these are the few questions that everyone needs to ask themselves. Of course, it just doesn't stop there. We need to report how well the outcomes have been met through the assessments. The choices made in reporting assessment information largely determine the benefit or harm resulting from this information. When I was in school, and that's many years back, I still remember, and I'm sure a lot of you may have had similar experiences. I was given a B grade throughout my growing years for art. I believed that I was that B. Not the big B, but just that B. And my capabilities and my individual self was based on what that teacher wanted from me. I didn't know what she wanted. I just know she'd given me that. Is that grade enough to identify whether I knew the color combinations were the ones that she wanted? Or was my drawing not as per her perception of what she wanted me to draw for a theme? I don't know anything. And I carried this forward throughout my life. I always believed, and if anyone asked me to draw, I always said, you know, I don't think I can draw. And that was just because of the B. It's only years later that when I was doing my bachelor's in education and we had to create teaching aids, well, there was no choice, so I had to draw. And I did draw, and my teaching aids were displayed as being the best artistically. And that's the time I realized that I've always